Microsoft's first main then foray into the gaming industry was of course the Xbox, and its lead title of which was going to become an epic, Halo. They launched the console, and I remembered very well, after the PlayStation 2, and it was at the time a very odd console, quite large. The controller was something different, sort of like a Dreamcast wannabe but bulkier. And we'd all been used for a long time to the controllers of the Mega Drive, Nintendo, and of course the PlayStation 2 and 1 at the time. But the Microsoft came in, they threw money at the project, and the Xbox was launched with a lead title. The graphics for the time did compete very well with the PlayStation 2, but it was more the gameplay, it was more the titles that I think drew people into the Xbox, and thus then begun the Microsoft community that we see flagging, albeit, but very much present today. I found, owning an Xbox myself, that the controller was the first big thing, and would continue even till this day to be a controversial point among gamers. Some preferred the PlayStation sloping angles and small but easy to use joysticks, whereas the Xbox at the time had joysticks that weren't parallel aligned, they were separated out, and from my point of view does have a lot of good aesthetic and ergonomic properties for the console gamer. What we'll see then is, now that we move forward a number of years, PlayStation sort of dominated the market with the PS2, with the Xbox nipping at its heels. It never really seemed to get off the benches, and I believe that's because we were about to see the introduction to the first line of next generation consoles, and Microsoft would give us the foray into this with the 360. In 2005 then, we saw on MTV, of course, Microsoft getting the little celebrity buddies on tow, the introduction of the Xbox 360. Now this thing revolutionized the gaming market and solidified a building Microsoft Xbox Live gaming community. The Xbox 360 introduced the idea of online play, subscription based, meaning that you had to pay for it every month or year. But people were willing to do that. This was the first time that you would no longer have to have your friends coming to visit. You could play with people that lived in another town, another city, another country. You could expand your friendship base, and this was attractive at the time when gaming was moving from the awkward period of being something that was shunned by society to something that was accepted. Almost it was popular to be a gamer, and the Xbox series sort of made it cool to be a gamer. The Xbox community was slightly elitist. They had the reputation of being more down to earth, more welcoming, whereas with the PlayStation community it has been commented that they're a lot more critical. Again, I believe it's the person and not the machine. The Xbox 360 then introduced us to a higher definition of gaming, the online play, as we've stated before. Also, an interesting thing that personally myself, that I was personally quite invested in, was the idea of system linking. You could link up Xboxes with other Xboxes, and we had these nights of system link nights, we called them, where you had 4 TVs and 4 Xboxes, you'd have 4 teams of 4, much like bowling nights in the 70s or drinking nights, and it was a great way for people to get together in a safe environment and actually enjoy each other's company. With the launch of the Xbox 360, the titles then continued to be the key factor of retaining customers or gamers. Halo, of course, developed. Halo 2, Halo 3 and so on were on the Xbox 360. You also saw the introduction of competing brands of games against PlayStation, and in my opinion designed and built specifically to compete with brands across the competition. You had PlayStation's Gran Turismo, while Xbox has Forza, and what we mean is they were system specific. That means that Forza was just Xbox, Gran Turismo was just PlayStation 3. And this rivalry then really did begin between the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox 360. The PlayStation 2 had titles upon titles. The walls were filled with games for the PlayStation 2, and that's where it became criticized. The PlayStation 2 gamers weren't real gamers because any old BS was launched for the PlayStation 2 without any sort of real story or drive, whereas the Xbox 360 games, they weren't as many, but the titles were, quote unquote, better, more in depth, better quality gaming. And I believe the reason for this is now, with of course using hindsight, we can, now that history has come and gone, we can see that PlayStation were building for their big reveal, the real nemesis in the market, the Xbox 360 versus the PlayStation 3. However, that was going to set up a continuing trend between PlayStation and Xbox that we see today, and we now see it with the quite controversial Xbox One. Releasing in and around the same date as the PlayStation 4, we have the introduction of the Xbox One, November 2013. Plagued with controversy till its release, many things that the Microsoft board of directors were doing, it really upset the gaming community. It felt like, again, they weren't caring for us. They were charging us, and it was this old sort of repetition that we go back to the old days of the Xbox 360, charging for subscription, that for some reason, if Sony can do something for free, well, Microsoft were better, we need to charge for it. Now that's of course my opinion on it. People had different opinions. I was a staunch Xbox fan for many years, and it was the PlayStation 3's free-to-play model online that swung me. And maybe that put the following events for the Xbox One into a new light. Firstly, of course, the cost. And we believe that we've seen, and personally from the experiences I've had, that 430 Great British pounds for the Xbox One compared with £350 for the PlayStation 4. Well, that's a bit of money in the back pocket. Arguments then of course said that the Xbox One, of course, for that price came with the new Kinect sensor, improved and better from the previous one, enabling you to do more voice options, control your console. The Xbox One, you could tell it to switch off, play a movie, navigate the menus with it. And this is the big difference then, and something that if you're looking into an Xbox One you have to consider. Many people consider the Xbox One at the moment in time, because in my opinion the titles do not match the bump that is coming with the Xbox One. The Xbox One is a media device at the moment. It is an all-rounder. It is a powerful machine. The stats are the same with both consoles, but it's really there for you to control, to have your Netflix, to become more media intensive. Okay, the PlayStation 1, in my opinion, is still driving forward with this idea of gaming. The titles, of course, that are coming out in the future for both consoles could shape that. But I think what we need to look at is a bigger picture. And we've discussed it on the PlayStation 3 page to a point, is the economy that we live in at the moment. The costs of these machines are far too much. The costs of the game, £60 now at times for a console game, far too much. I couldn't afford it. Whereas if you look at the PC video we did today, you're looking at deals on Steam, bundle weekends, abilities to mod games so that you might buy one game for £30 today, and you have dedicated modders, people who are creative to change these games into something new that will have replay value for years. Now, of course, it's something that they're trying to introduce. Developers are trying to be able to make games for both Xbox and PlayStation. Can they keep up? Only time will tell.